Hey guys, this is a kind of showcase tutorial of infinite kind of procedural worlds in Godot. This file is on GitHub, um, github/bsu/bard/Godot 3D procedural infinite terrain. You just hit code and then you hit download zip, and then in the Godot program you import the project and then run it, and it'll take you to this main scene here, which is using an add-on called Sky 3D, which just looks a lot better for clouds, and the clouds are moving and the sun is good, and the sun can move over time, so it's just a good sky add-on. But then there's chunks that will generate in the game, so when you hit play it'll generate all of these chunks procedurally, and then the textures are procedural noise, and then there's a shader that, based on the height, kind of fades in and out of this sand texture when you get to a certain height. And then the water level kind of moves up and down. It has a shader, and then at another certain height you kind of go underwater, and it gets underwater, and then you can basically fly with spacebar, move with WASD, and then sprint with shift key. But the water is pretty good, and it covers pretty much the whole area of the chunk. You can set your render distance to render farther away, and then you can also kind of tweak the noise settings of the chunks to kind of get more mountains, less mountains, more beaches, less beaches, and kind of higher mountains if you just kind of set those scales. But just kind of walking around, I mean, it will generate chunks. It'll kind of lag for, fraction of a second. That'll be loading a chunk. But I'm just pressing spacebar and WASD and moving around trying to load some more chunks and see what else we can generate over here. In the distance you can kind of see the mountain has a shader, which is based on the slope, the angle. If it's a really high slope, then it gets a gray texture, which is another procedural noise texture. It's not like JPEGs or PNG files of textures. It's all just noise, and you can kind of see how it's patterned there. So it's not great for that. There's ways around that, but I didn't do that. And then you can kind of see the seam as well between the chunks. It really gets messed up for the slope shader, but not really for the grass shader or the beach shader or the water shader. But if I go high enough, you can kind of see the chunks loading in farther away. If I keep going this way, you can kind of see the seams between the chunks. Yeah, so now it's loading in chunks, and it's also unloading chunks farther away behind. So it's just based on position. It's not based on camera yet. I guess it could be an addition that makes it even more performant, is to kind of just load chunks based on where the camera's looking. But currently it's just position and how far away things are from the player. But yeah, I mean, it'll go on forever. It'll just keep generating mountains and valleys and lakes like this, just kind of randomly based on noise. And then you can kind of mess with that. Not in the main scene. In the main scene you can do render distance, up that a couple points. Chunk size I don't really mess with, and then scale. We'll kind of just scale everything related to the character, so it could be smaller or bigger, and the character could be smaller or bigger. It's kind of the same thing with the scale. Update interval, how often it updates. But this chunk scene will have the top level will control the noise procedural for kind of the base continent, the procedural noise for the mountains, the procedural noise for the valleys, and the procedural noise for erosion. There's some water plane fields down here, but I mean, you can change usually the frequency, and definitely the seed if you want to switch things up for all of these. I don't really change the frequency too much, but definitely the seed. You can get a brand new world every time you get a new seed. And then hiding those. All of them have a scale, so if I really wanted big mountains, I could up this mountain scale. I could get hillier terrain with the continent scale. Here's the chunk size. I don't really mess with that, but yeah, just basically new seeds, maybe change the frequency, and you'll get a brand new world. Yeah, so this is all new, generating procedurally, and then I upped my render distance, so it took a little longer, but now I have farther render distance, so you can see mountains way out there. And yeah, you can pretty much, make new worlds. You can, if it's jagged like this, you can change, there's an option for chunk size in X and Z, and that'll upgrade basically the resolution, the vertices, and the chunk size will make it not so jagged, like you see down here. Some of these are more jagged, but then that'll obviously hurt your render times. But so far it's not too jagged, it's usually pretty smooth. The mountains are really where the seams start to look strange because the the slope is not, perfectly aligned on one, and then there's a seam where the new chunk happens, and that kind of generates the slope based on that. And then I told you about the sky was an add-on Sky 3D, and it comes with time changes, and I hooked up the time change to the T key. So you just gotta tap it, but you can change time. You can get to, it's pretty quick, but you can get a full day cycle, kind of a sunset, and then the moon will come out, and you'll have kind of like ambient light from the moon, so you can still see, but it's not like, shining directly on you or anything. And that's all changeable in the Sky 3D add-on, so just press T a couple more times, get the sunrise, kind of midday. And yeah, if I up the render distance, I could keep going. I'm on a pretty old GPU, a 1070, and it still does pretty well, so yeah, you can keep going and keep messing with it, and the frequency and seeds and all that, and pretty much do whatever you want. Thanks.